my God, high drama moment. So welcome everyone. Congratulations for getting out of bed this morning and for brushing your teeth this morning. My understanding is if you set low bars and then you jump high, you feel good about yourself. So I just want to congratulate you all for being here. And also when I say here, what I mean is on this game show, we're actually on a game show. It's a collaborative intelligence game show. And it's only our fourth experiment with these play spaces. So I guess I want to qualify it by saying that the itinerary is subject to reality, which means that we are not going for perfection. We are going for play and joy and experimentation. And it's only our fourth one. So truly, we are like just on the runway. And also we have about 300 and something of you who indicated an interest. So that's promising. And I think that has to do with our guest today, which is Dan Rome. And I don't want to talk about you too much, Dan, because I love you like a little too much, perhaps a little fangirly, but he's a pretty special guy. So I think part of it is that it's him, but we also have players and we also have in-studio audience, okay? So again, like shit could break down, but that's what we do here. So we play, okay? So can y'all see my screen? I'm sharing my screen because I'm gonna bring Dan in. Yeah, you can see it. Okay, right on. So very quickly, we're democratizing a discipline called collaboration design. There it went, bye-bye. Look at it, it went away. Look at that. Okay, check it out. So the reality is already testing us. That's so good. And the reason why that's relevant, can y'all see that? Is because we have to solve problems together, right? Problems are getting more sophisticated and more complicated, and it's no longer something you can do on an island. And so we test and experiment with collaborative intelligence to support the experience of solving together in ways that amplify solutions. And as it turns out, one of the best ways, and this is why Dan is so important to me, and I think important to many of you who decided to come and get out of bed, is because visual thinking is one of the biggest allies for problem solving. So Dan he is a tool maker, a tool designer, a multi-time celebrated author. And actually, Dan, so can y'all bring him in? Bring him and his beard in here. I need to see this bearded wonder.
I'm right here.
Can y'all see him? Everybody can see him? Okay, cool. So Dan, this is your bio. Y'all can read that at will. But I think the most important thing about this is something that resonates really with me, and I think a lot of the visual thinkers here, which is you say in this bio, your purpose is to make complex things clear. And that is also one of my major life purposes. So I just wanted to say hi to you and thank you for the effort you've put in for the show, which was more than you anticipated. And also show you this adorable picture of us at South by Southwest in 2012. Do you remember this?
I do remember that. And look how things have changed. Oh my goodness.
How have they changed?
What do you know?
You got a beard.
I grew a beard. That's the only thing that's happened in the last 10 years. Yeah.
What else has changed? Also you do yoga daily. But I wanted to also just, you guys, so this is my Dan Rome bookshelf. I have a visual thinking. I have all 6 of your books, Dan, but I have a visual thinking section on my bookshelf, but I also have a Dan Rome specific section. Oh so that's a lot. He's a prolific author. And so what we get to do today is we get to actually, this is the universe. And then I'm gonna hand it over to Dan, but this is the universe of what we're experiencing today, the kind of arc of experience. So we're gonna go through a process where Dan will set up our players for success. We have some players in the room, and y'all can do it at home actually as well. So that's important to note. But then ultimately we're gonna move into a game space and then we're gonna close. But I just wanted y'all to see the lay of the land, okay? So let me move us into this space. Dan, is there anything you wanna say? Did I miss something? Did I forget something?
Well, Sunny, if I might, just for a moment, thank you so much for asking me to join you on this game show, on this collaboration feast. It has been a lot of fun to set it up, and I'm delighted to be able to share some of my thoughts about the power of visual storytelling, especially as something that helps in collaboration. And just on a side note, the fact that we're doing this on Mural is really cool because I do use Mural quite a bit.
Oh, awesome.
And it's fantastic to test out Mural as a way to use some of these visual tools and storytelling to help us collaborate in real time. So it's going to be kind of interesting what's going to happen. So Sunny and all of you who've joined, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, if you are leaning into collaboration design or facilitation as a practice, this playground is helpful for you because you get to see how we stumble, how we recover, how we support each other, and how we ultimately learn in the process. That's part of the intention. Yeah. Okay, so Dan, I'm going to do you want to set him up for the visual decoder?
Sure. So, as Sunny mentioned, I've spent my life, really my entire working life and most of my non-working life, really
Mhm,
trying to understand the world a little bit more effectively. And the way, Sunny, as you pointed out, that I like to do that is by drawing. I'm a
mhm,
huge believer in the power of our visual mind. And one of the things that we're going to be doing today is exploring a tool that I have developed in
mhm,
concert with and with the support of a lot of other people that are incredibly smart and incredibly well versed in how the brain works, how do we process information visually and cognitively. And
mhm,
we've created a tool, and it's called the Visual Decoder.
mhm.
And I'm going to draw a little bit on the screen, Sunny, as we go, because I'm going to encourage everybody who's joining us, our game players, to draw on the screen when we can as well. There's drawing tools available in Mural, and we're going to use them. And this is
Mhm.
one of the things that I love. So the Visual Decoder is simply the name of a tool. And we're going to use this tool to help us all begin to figure out how might we use simple visual storytelling in a collaborative real-time environment to clarify our own thinking and then share it with other people live.
Mhm,
And Sunny, one more thing, if I may, in order for this to work, you
mhm,
all need some kind of a story that you want to tell us. Now, imagine if we were using Mural in a business meeting and we wanted to collaborate. Probably the fact that we're in a business meeting would mean that we have something in common. We have a business challenge or a product to launch or a very complicated process to work our way through. In this case, all of us on the phone, all of us on the Zoom don't have that in common. So what you're going to need to do
mhm,
for yourself as we work through the visual decoder is I need you all to think about a story that you
mhm,
might want to share with us as this next hour unrolls. So Sunny and I came up with three kind of prompts. And what I want every single person who's on right now to think about while Sunny and I are talking for the next few minutes is think of a story
mhm,
that you really, really like and would be willing to practice clarifying, and then maybe for some of you sharing with us. Now, that story might be a favorite movie. That's cool. If you're really into a blockbuster movie or maybe a small indie movie that came out recently that you want to share with us, that's a great story to tell.
mhm,
Maybe a story would be a success that you've had at work. What was the best thing that happened in your work life in the last couple of months? You might want to tell us the story of that.
mhm.
Or on this kind of abundant, good mindset, maybe you want to tell us a story about the way you imagine your best life being 2 years from now. So, Sunny, does that make sense? Three possible stories we want people to just start thinking about. You with me?
Yes, and don't overthink it, y'all, because ultimately you're learning the tool. You can't, there's no right story. So just
Mm-hmm.
kind of go with what feels good. Okay.
Exactly. And
Mhm,
so, as people are thinking about the story, Sunny,
mhm.
let's move over to our little doodle warm up circle.
Yeah, they already
Now,
started doing it outside.
absolutely. This is Mural. This is what it does. And
Right.
this is why we love drawing. So you'll
Mhm,
see that we put a nice, perfectly round circle there. What I want everybody to do is
mhm,
grab some kind of a drawing tool in
mhm,
any color that you want. And I want you to draw with me around that circle. So you see, here I go. I'm using my mouse. It's a little clunky, but you know what? That's good enough. You can do it.
mhm.
So everybody's drawing on their circle. How fantastic is that? Now
I
keep
know.
going for a moment. We'll consider this our warm up. Explore Mural a little bit, explore the interface. How do you access a drawing tool? How do you draw? Okay, let's all pause for a moment now, because even though that was a warm up drawing, I
Mhm,
also want you to know that in the spirit of visual storytelling, you all have just drawn a beautiful scientific diagram. And what I mean by that is the following.
yeah.
Sonny, imagine that that circle that we just drew is
Uh-huh.
your brain. And that
Yes.
circle represents the 100 billion neurons that you have in your brain. Do you
Yes.
want to know, Sonny? Do you want to take a wild guess? How many, what percent of
What
your
percent?
entire brain is dedicated to processing
Well,
vision?
I know it's a lot
Yeah,
because we're such creatures of the visual nature. So
yeah.
I'm gonna guess 40.
You're really close. So I'm going to draw it, and you can all do this on our mural whiteboard as well. I want you to cut that brain in half and
Hmm.
metaphorically fill in half of it, as I'm doing right now. It
Hmm.
is estimated now by the neurobiologists, cognitive scientists, visual scientists, et cetera, that probably about half of your entire brain is there to do one thing, and that is help you process vision. Sonny,
Hmm.
think about this.
Hmm.
More of the human brain is dedicated to processing vision than any other thing that we do. And by an orders of magnitude, that is true. So we
Yeah.
humans, we're good at a lot of things. We're good at language. We're good at singing. We're good at writing. We're good at talking. We're good at memorizing things. We're good at storytelling. We're good at making our way through the world. and staying alive, we're good at solving complicated problems. And half of our entire brain is dedicated to vision.
And
what do you think about that?
I think that it's so important that you're emphasizing this. And I think that's partly why you and I got both so passionate. And I'm excited to ask you questions later about your journey in visual language. But for me, the sort of travesty of not emphasizing the processing and capacity for visual information is a huge missed opportunity. And those of you who know me as the doodle lady, like Dr. Doodle, we're both really passionate about it. So I wonder how we're going to unlock this together. And I'm glad that we have the drawing tool in Mural, because people think that rudimentary isn't enough, but it is sufficient, right, Dan?
Totally.
Yeah.
And one of the questions, Sunny, that people ask after we've shared the power of drawing and vision is inevitably someone will say, number one, I can't draw. And that's fixable because everybody just proved that you can. It's pretty straightforward. You don't need to do anything beautifully artistic.
Right.
Number two, people would say, okay, well, let's say I can draw like a circle and a stick figure, but what picture would I even draw? So over the years, I've come up with this tool, and we're going to introduce it really quick right now, which I call the visual decoder. All the visual decoder is a simple templated framework that is based on the science of vision, which we're going to get to in a moment. It simply says, when you want to tell someone, even perhaps yourself, a story, even a complicated story, and you want to use visuals to do it, there is a templated structure that you can use to tell that story in a way that helps you tell it really easily, helps you then convey it to someone else, helps you clarify your own thinking. And the reason that the visual decoder works, which I'll show you in just a second, is because it aligns perfectly with how our visual mind already is wired to see the world. So that half of our brain that's processing things visually, enough is known about that now from a kind of a process and a scientific perspective to say, we kind of know how vision works. And at a big macro level, all I've done in the visual decoder is emulate that process.
See, that's important, Dan, because you're saying that it's something that we reveal that's native and instinctive, and we reveal it rather than having to muscle our way into learning it. Like, it's more about unlocking it or allowing it. And I think that's significant in terms of making it less daunting. Yeah. And it does remind me, Dan, of this time. Remember, because I seriously have been tracking your work for a very long time, not in like a sneaky, stalky way, but like just out of respect. But I remember you talking about politicians were always doing these hand gestures to describe the stories they wanted to tell. And what they were looking for was a picture to describe it. Wasn't it Ross Perot? Don't you remember? We knew each other when it couldn't have been Ross Perot, but remember he used to draw to explain.
Well, the Ross Perot, good Texas politician, ran for president. And of course, Ross Perot, this is many, many decades ago for people that are.
I was like, did I know you?
No, we did not. He was before our time, but we did talk about the fact that he came out of nowhere and managed to make a very credible presidential run up until it was found out that there was some nasty business in his background, but out of nowhere. And the reason is because he drew pictures. And I had an opportunity to work with President Obama's communications staff and actually trained up a lot of the staff in the White House Office of Communications under President Obama on how to use visuals to tell really complicated stories in a way that makes sense to people. And the reason, again, why it works is because we've got the science. Sunny, I know the clock is ticking. It's always ticking. Can I just share with you all a little bit of Dan talks about science. What the heck is he even talking about?
Dan talks about science. So let's let Dan talk about science.
So I'm going to unleash the science, Dan, and this will take just a moment because this is just so unbelievably cool. So I'm going to pull up the drawing tools one more time. I'm going to switch color now. I'm going to switch over to red here for a moment. Okay. And we're looking at this word that says science and a bunch of people drawing on a whiteboard. Yay. Okay. So we talk about vision a lot. Well, what is vision? Vision is real simple. Vision is simply light, usually the sun, that is reflecting off of objects and coming into our eyes. And behind our eyes, we have a brain. And what vision is simply our brain's process. And there's a lot of neuromechanical pieces to it and cognitive pieces. But what it is our visual engine. Our eyes, our optic nerve, our visual neocortex, a whole bunch of parts throughout our body and in our brain, trying to say, there is light coming into me. And that light carries meaning. How do I convert light into meaning in my mind? And the brain has evolved over millions and millions of years to do that incredibly well. and do it so well that it occupies more of our brain than any other thing that we do, which might make vision sound really complicated. But if you can break down the process, which people have done, you realize the way the brain does that is it doesn't try to solve the entire visual problem all at once, meaning it doesn't look at everything all at once and just boom, know what's going on. What our brain does is it breaks down the multiple visual signals that are coming in into a specific order and a specific set of parallel work paths. So what I mean by that is there literally, Sunny, there is a path in our brain, in our visual engine called the what pathway. And its job is simply to identify the things that are in front of us. Do I see a dog? Do I see a bird? Do I see a car? Do I see a Sunny? What is it? Then there's a second pathway in a very different part of our brain operating in parallel called the how much pathway. And its job is to try to count things. Are there a lot of things in front of me or just very few things? And it turns out that makes a difference. If there's only one thing in front of me, it's probably worth a lot of my attention. But if there are 1,000 things in front of me, then I'm going to have to spread my attention across all of them until I discern which one is the one that's the most threatening. There's a third path in parallel that's called the where pathway. And its job is simply to identify where all that stuff is and what is its relation to each other. So we've got 3 different pathways that then come together into a fourth pathway called when, that stitches together what am I looking at, how many of them are there, and where are they now, and then watches them move and says, oh, I'm deriving meaning out of what I saw because those objects that I've identified are either changing quantities or changing position before my eyes. Something's up. It then gets kicked into literally what is called the how pathway, which seeks to answer the question, as those things in those numbers, in those positions are moving and interacting with each other, what kind of cause and effect relationships am I witnessing? And what does that mean to me? Is the dog chasing the bird or is the bird chasing the dog? That would be very different meaning. And then all of this kicks into the last thing that we call cognition, kind of the end of the pipeline that says, now that I know that, my brain has exerted a tremendous amount of calories in going through that whole process. By the way, that process took 1/10 of a second for me to do, but I do it 1,000 times a second. That's where that huge brain load goes into vision. The whole process takes 1/10 of a second to do, but I am doing it in parallel thousands of times a second, so that in the end, and we talk about this a lot, I come up with why. What is it that I've witnessed and why does it matter to me? And how does having seen that information set me up to move on to survive or maybe to thrive? Sunny, I'm going to pause. Does that make sense, what I've shared so far?
It's interesting. And it reminds me in a strange way of the culture of safety conversation. One of our other guests had written a book called The Culture of Safety. And it reminds me of how the nervous system, because that all impacts the nervous system, scanning for safety and threat. I don't remember how many times it is a second, but it's a significant energetic metabolic cost. And ultimately, and it's interesting, Dan, because, and I won't talk forever, but I just want to say that the why piece is the summation of all of that data processing. And so when he teaches you this tool, it's at the end, because he actually wants you to atomize this in a way related to those pathways. So it's very cool that you're breaking this down. And Yolanda, I saw your comment. I love science. I love science too, Yolanda, and I love you. I just had to shout out, sorry.
And we could talk all about the science of love at another time too, because that's really fascinating.
Oxytocin, yeah.
So here we go. Dan explained all this stuff to us. Cool, Dan, thank you. And why am I talking about myself in the third person? I have
Dan,
no idea.
Thank you. Yes, I thought you might want me to say that.
Well,
because he's a weirdo.
So here's why it matters and where the visual decoder came from, which started this whole conversation. What this little equation tells us is a couple of things. Number one, vision is completely predictable. What I mean by that is I don't know what you're going to see, but I know the order in which you're going to see it. I know how your brain is going to process the information coming in what order, in order to get you to deduce what you are witnessing from vision. So if I have a story to tell you, I can feed you exactly the right pictures in exactly the right order so that the pictures I show you line up perfectly with how your brain already wants to perceive the world. Beautiful. And here's what those pictures are. Since the first thing was identifying what am I looking at, the first picture you're going to draw is a little portrait, some little icons, some little emojis that say, these are the people I'm talking about, and these are the things that are involved. And then I'm going to draw another picture, which will be a map that's going to say, and here's where they overlap. And then I'm going to draw you another picture, which is going to be a chart. And it's going to say, and this is how many of them there are. And then I'm going to take those three and I'm going to put them all together into a kind of a timeline. And I'm going to draw out for you a timeline that says those objects and people in those numbers, in those positions are interacting like this. And guess what? That is how you visually tell any story at all. And then we're going to summarize it at the end by giving it a final drawing. So that's where the visual decoder came from. All it is a simple little pen and paper framework, and we're going to simulate it digitally right now, that obligates you as you're thinking about your story to tell it in the order that everybody else's mind already wants to see it. How cool is that?
I think it's really potent, Dan. And I love that about you, that I'm so curious about how you find these methodologies, because it's like you unearth them, but they also are resonant with the way that we're designed. And I just appreciate that about you, because it's not a force fit. You're actually letting us just be ourselves and then teaching us how to leverage it. It's very cool.
So, yeah. Sunni, thank you for that. May I comment on that? Just because
course.
I think for a lot of people, I'm guessing, that are on the line with us right now, and I can say this with some confidence because it's been my experience in leading, like you, Sunni. I've probably done thousands of workshops at this point in my life, and trying to get feedback from people. There's something very comforting when I know this because people have shared it with me. The reason why I try to come up with these tools, as a kid, the world was overwhelming. And that's true for every kid. And for most of us as adults, the world's still overwhelming.
No doubt.
Isn't it useful when we have some frameworks that help us navigate it? And I just want to come up with those frameworks. And I'm real selfish. I do it for me. Like, I need to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
And then when I've done that, there's the beauty of then realizing other people find that valuable too. And so this is kind of the opportunity to give a gift. Hey, it worked for me. It might work for you. And here's why.
Yeah. And I think demystifying is clarity is kindness, and demystification is also an act of kindness. And so if people look really closely, they can see that this is an offering, a genuine offering for all of us. And that's probably why I was so drawn to it. Because I was also overwhelmed most of my life.
Yeah.
So you guys, so there is a game that we're going to play, and Dan's going to give you all an example. And in his way of kindness, he also wants to set people up to be successful. And so you see the simplicity of the drawings. That's one aspect of it. But we're also going to he's going to walk you through one of the examples of the visual decoder, so that it's totally not mysterious before the players get into the game and start doing it themselves. Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Sunni. So as we transition from science, which is cool, but okay, how do I apply that? What does that even mean? I thought of a story, and this is one, I just want to give you a visual decode of Harry Potter. And I know J.K. Rowling has gotten herself really sideways out in kind of the public mind. And I find that incredibly unfortunate, because I also think she's one of the greatest writers alive today. And the Harry Potter stories are incredible. I have two daughters, and we read the Harry Potter stories all through from beginning to end, all the books, probably 3 or 4 times. And with one of my daughters, I said, she had to give a book report on Harry Potter. And she said to me, hey, Dad, you draw all the time. Can we use drawings to try to explain Harry Potter to set me up to be able to give a report? And it was the perfect opportunity. So she and I worked together. We use a visual decoder to visually tell the story of the very first Harry Potter book. And I'm going to share it with you right now. So just real quickly, Sunni, if you could zoom in right on the 4 panels, you got it. So the first panel is my daughter and I drew who are the characters that you meet as you read this story. And we meet a guy named Harry, and we meet Hermione, and we meet Ron, and we meet Dumbledore, and we meet someone named Voldemort, and we meet someone named Quirrell, and mostly we meet this thing called magic. So there they are. We're going to ask you to draw the same thing when we get into game mode. Simply identify the people and the things that are involved in your story without any value judgment, without any mapping of relationships. Just here they are. It's like lay the game pieces out on the board. It's like if you're going to watch a basketball game. The first thing that happens is all the players come out on the floor and they're introduced. We don't yet know who's good or bad or anything. All we know is here are the people who are going to play. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a little map that says, okay, those people, where are they playing? And in the case of the map that we drew for Harry Potter, we said, There's really two worlds in the Harry Potter book. There's a world of London and Privet Drive, which is the little suburb where Harry lives. And then there's a world of Hogwarts. And if you think about it, there's actually two worlds. And one of them we're going to call the Muggle world. That is the non-magical world. And the other one we're going to call the Wizarding world. And when the story takes place, for the most part, in the first book in London, there are not very many magical people around. And then Harry realizes what connects these two worlds is a train. And that train is kind of metaphorically the transport between the magic world and the non-magic world. And when Harry goes into the magic world, that's where he really starts to learn who he is. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's cool. So we have a bunch of characters in a bunch of places. Nice. But now here's a weird one. Quantify. And why is this? Because most of us live in a business world, and it ain't going to be good enough when we're trying to make a business case and we say, because I feel it. Someone's going to come and say, I need some numbers on that. Sunny, Go ahead.
Well, I actually was going to ask about that. So thanks for mentioning it, because so say like when you're evaluating in the natural world, there could be a flock of birds. You don't know the actual data of the number in the flock. So it's not irrelevant to not have charts and graphs, but to your point, in a business context, you need it. But I'm just clarifying for the people that it's you can also have a vague experience of a lot of birds, can't you?
Yeah, and I think they've made a movie about that called The Birds, and how many? Too many. So here's what's cool though, because I want you to see this, Sunny and everybody. Something really interesting happens when you take a very squishy qualitative story like Harry Potter, and you force yourself to think about it quantitatively. You force it. Yeah. And because here's what's going to happen. I said with my daughter, we need to make a chart because we need to clarify the kind of the how manys. What is it that we know from the Harry Potter book is measurable? And she said, well, I know this. I know that there's two kinds of people. There are muggles who are non-magical, and then there's wizards. And we learned right away that we did a chart. Most people in the world are non-magical. But you could compare that and say there's a few who are wizards. So that's interesting. Not very many magical people exist in this world that we're reading. But then there's something really cool that happens that makes this kind of significant to the story. If we dig down and say, quantify that a little bit more, our hero Hagrid, for those of you who know the story, says right up front to Harry, he says, there's a lot of wizards and not all the wizards are good, Harry. Most are. So if we just did a little chart right here, broke down the wizard world, we'd see that typically most wizards are good, but there's a few bad ones. But what happens in the story is a lot of the wizards start to turn bad. And what we realize is when that happens, quantitatively, there's a tipping point. When enough wizards turn bad, the world goes to hell. And that's kind of the point of the story. So isn't that interesting what happens when you force yourself to think in numbers?
Yeah, that is helpful too, because we're not being like uber specific, but you're looking at proportions and ratios. That's a different thing.
Exactly. And so what we're going to do now, you remember, we've identified who and what up here, where they are, and how many. And now we're going to pull that all together into a very simple when timeline. And here's the way it goes. At the beginning of this story, Harry is a poor boy who's living in the non-magical world. As the story goes on, he's taken into the magical world and he finds magic and realizes he's a wizard. In this magical world, he makes a lot of friends and learns a lot of lessons. And for the first time, as far as we know, Harry meets evil. He meets badness. And he has to, with his friends, fight a giant battle and beat the badness down. And then when it's over, guess what? He returns back, a poor boy once again, right where he started. Typical hero's journey type stuff.
Typical hero's journey, yeah.
You got it. So last one is, if you were to take those pictures and in the back of your visual decoder, summarize it kind of into the why did JK tell us this story? What are we supposed to take away from it? Here's what my daughter interpreted. That in the world, there's typically a balance between good and evil, and it does stay kind of in balance. But sometimes, as we saw, evil becomes really big. So here's what she believes the story is about, and I think my daughter was right. I think what the Harry Potter series is really trying to tell us is that with friends, truth, and love, friends, truth, and love, you can quash evil, at least for a little while.
She's so insightful.
Isn't that beautiful? So there we had it. Now, that's what we're going to ask all our game players to do, not for Harry Potter, but for whatever the story was that you all came up with. And Sunny, I want to hand it to you for a moment. You're the mural wizard. Yeah. So help our game players for just maybe a couple of minutes. What are we going to ask them to do as they fill in their decoder?
Oh, it's so funny. Well, so you guys know we're doing this in hey Jim, do you see the floating? I think magic is happening. I think you summoned some magic for the Harry Potter thing. But so you guys, so since we're playing this in Mural, so for the people that are at home, y'all can put that on a piece of paper and draw your version of it. And actually Dan has, just for fun and giggles, it's called the pop-up pitch, right? So he also has a way that he shows you actually on the canvas that you can make your own pop-up, but in the interest of time, you can just draw it on a piece of paper and draw it in the segments. And then also, so you see where my sticky notes went floating. That is fun. Here, I'm going to put them back just really quick, and okay, so we are going to play the players. When y'all get to your own game space, everybody's going to have their own game space. And when you get to it, we're going to muralize it. So we're going to use the tools that Mural affords us, not all of them because we are keeping it simple, but we're going to use some of the tools. So to do what Dan did for your own story that you chose, and hopefully you've arrived at a story at this point in the process, we're just going to encourage you to use the switch to sketch option on the sticky note. So if you can see, you guys can all see where I am, yeah?
Sure can.
So all you have to do is double click on the canvas for people that are in the canvas, and you'll see an option that says switch to sketch. And it'll ask you if you want to do that, and you'll lose if there's typewritten content, you'll lose it, but you're just going to switch to sketch. And that's how you're going to create your pieces for most of the blocks. But if you do, Jim, I saw you put Voldemort yesterday. So I was like, I'll do it, even though it's such a hideous face. But like, if you want to use the image option in Mural instead of drawing, that's totally fine. But I would encourage you to use the doodling capacity, because it does actually create deeper engagement in the brain. And so it's kind of nice in that regard, but it's fun to put images. So you do you. So I think that
Sunny, can I make one more comment, if I may?
Absolutely.
If anybody who's going along with us in the game board is struggling with the drawing on the Post-it, let's be clear. If you just want to pop a Post-it and just type someone's name, if you just want to do that, that's fine too. What we're trying to do though is collect the ideas in a visual way, as if we were on a whiteboard.
That's right.
So Sunny, if you wouldn't mind, just pan over a little bit to the right where we have a generic game board.
This
and
one?
If I might, I want to take like 15 seconds to explain to people what we're going to do. Is that okay?
Cool.
And then we'll unleash everyone into their own game zones.
Yeah.
All right. So what you see right here, I'm going to draw around it in red. This is a pre-created visual decoder template, just like what I showed you for Harry Potter. You're going to have a title here. You got the 4 quadrants in this center area, the who and the what, the where, the how much, and the when, just like we did already. And then you got a lessons learned. So what we're going to do is we're not going to ask people to draw the whole thing at once. We're going to go through it through 6 steps, and each one is going to last a couple of minutes. So we're going to ask all our players to just, for the first step, type in their title. We'll all do that together. Then we're going to ask everybody to go over to the first quadrant. And for 3 minutes, right, Sunny? We're giving them 3 minutes.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes.
We're going to set a time.
I was hoping you could time it when we set the timer. Is that cool, Jim? Yeah.
So we're going to go through a process of moving everybody to one panel of the visual decoder, giving everybody 3 minutes to do the best job they can on your own to fill it in, whether with drawings, Post-its, the sticky notes, drawing on the sticky notes. The first couple panels, it's going to be a little rocky as we practice, but by the time we're going to do this 5 times, and by the time we get to the end, you are going to be wizards as well.
You're going to be wizards.
I don't think there's anything more we can really add, Sunny.
Well, they're going to be good wizards. I feel like it's important to emphasize.
We're all good wizards. Yep. And with truth, friendship, and love, we're going to purge of any bad wizards who might show up.
That's right. And actually, yes, Patty,
like that's everywhere.
That's right. That's what we do on this show. We try to summon truth, friendship, love, and collaboration. That is why we're here. So is that, do y'all have questions for the players? Did I interrupt you, Dan?
No, I'm just like Sahar, Douglas, Antonio, and then we've got our others who have joined in. Everybody gravitate towards your own game board.
Oh,
Sunny,
look how quick they are. They're so good. They already grabbed it.
They're already in. Okay. So step 1, I'm going to give steps and then we're going to start. Okay, Sunny. And as we go, can I just go into game show host mode right now?
Yeah, I want you to. Yeah, I want nothing more. Yes.
I'm just going to zoom in on Douglas's just as an example.
Okay.
But I'm going to do that. So all of our players, what we need you to do, good over here in good old quadrant, number 1, the front cover of a visual decoder, the one that looks like an icon of a book, with a Post-it note, In the next 30 seconds, each of you, we want you to throw a Post-it note in there and then type the name of the story you're going to tell us. You don't have to be clever. Just, if it's Harry Potter, it's Harry Potter. If it's my best future, it's my best future. If it's why I love Top Gun 3, I know. Whatever it is, type it in, everybody go. And let's kind of give about 30 seconds for that. This is just a quick one.
Yeah.
And now, Sunny, would you do us a favor and zoom out? I want to see everybody typing away at the same time. This is where things get super groovy.
Totally.
Look at that. Look at that.
Isn't that fun?
Who doesn't love mural? Look at this thing. Go.
I know. It's like the collective cognitive power. And so, Batman. So Daniel's doing Batman. Very cool.
Batman.
Batman.
Well, unless it's the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight series, which is a whole different thing. Okay,
that's
time's up.
Solid,
everybody needs to have a title now.
Rhino in the room. Okay, good. Got it.
Okay, now, Jim, can you please set a timer for us for 3 minutes? Ladies and gentlemen, everybody in your own game board, zoom in only to the quadrant that's called who and what. And as the little instructions up there say, what I want you to do is draw in there in the little red Post-it notes. You can read the instructions. They're pretty specific. In that quadrant, I want you to draw 3 or 4 people or groups who are involved in your story. Who's impacted? Who's it about? Who benefits? Add in a thing or two. You got 3 minutes. I'm going to be quiet. However you want to do it.
You're going to talk because I'm going to interview you. So players, while y'all are working in these 3-minute segments, I'm actually going to ask Dan some questions so that the viewers have some intrigue while y'all are working. So if it's distracting for you, just mute yourselves while you're working, but you'll hear the buzzer, right?
Look at look at them go. Look at them go. We got everybody doing every kind of way. We've
look at that cute
people using Post-it notes. We got people who are using sketches.
Yeah.
I haven't yet seen anybody who's dumped in an image, but
good. We got a business story too. We got hiring our VP of sales. Good. So I like the range of breaking down the stories, and also Blade Runner. What's up, Jeff? Blade Runner. Bam. Very he just.
Hey, Sunny.
Yeah.
Can you ask me the question? How is it, Dan, that this visual decoder can support such a wide range of stories?
Yes. Let me see if I got you correctly. How is it, Dan, that this visual decoder can support such a wide range of stories?
What a great question, Sunny.
Thank you.
Because here's the deal. Here's the deal, folks. Everything in our brain is a story. When we're trying to solve a business problem, a story is unfolding in our brain that says, this is what it looks like. This is where I need to go. This is what stresses me about it. The way our brain works for almost everything that's involved higher level cognitive functioning comes in the form of a story. So we could be relating Batman. We could be relating hiring a new vice president of HR. We could be talking about how we're going to try to address climate change. We could be talking about who done it. If you're, it doesn't matter what is the context. The way we tell the story follows a very similar pattern.
Yes. And that's actually a whole other show that we could do, which is sort of unpacking story, because we also believe stories about our lives and ourselves that are actually limiting. So story is a very, very potent natural mechanism of humans that we would be behooved to know more about. So y'all have 1 more minute for the first panel, and you're going to hear the buzzer, and then we're going to go on. And so, Dan, do you have other questions you want me to ask you? Because I like repeating.
No, that was the only one. Yeah.
So that's cool, because I do want to take the opportunity, and it's really self-serving, because to your point, Dan, you and I have both been visual thinking advocates for a very long time. I'm 15 years in, and you're 28 years in or something, and so I never get to interview people that are like me in that way. And so my first question is, which you kind of touched on, about your origin story as it relates to visual language. And if you don't want to elaborate more than you already have, that's fine. But I'm fascinated by how people find their way there. And so.
Sure. Sunny, thank you. We talked about it a little bit. Every kid draws when they're little. Before you have the ability to read and write, everybody draws. And yes, I understand there are some exceptions.
Next panel. Go ahead.
So we'll answer the question. All right, let's dive into panel 2 now. This is called the where panel, upper right hand corner.
Oh, you're coaching them per panel.
Yep, okay. Per panel, we're going to give a little prep.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so all of our game players, what I need you to do is, with all those different characters and things in mind, What I want you to imagine now is draw us a map, and there's a lot of different varieties. Right now, at the centerpiece of your story, what is the relationship? Where do those people sit? Are they all in the same place, or are they all wildly distributed? And you could draw us a geographic map of the world. You could draw more something more, say, conceptual, like some people, all the left-handed people are over here and all the right-handed people are over here and all the ambidextrous people are over here. Whatever you want to do, but draw some sort of coordinate system-y map thing and show us where those people might be. Now, you can read it. Draw a map illustrating where those people and things overlap and intersect today. So start with a status quo map. And then think about how you might modify that map when you're telling the story to show how things change. Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
That's the assignment. Clock's going.
Yeah. Clock's
Jim,
going.
you could fire up that 3-minute thing for us.
Yeah. So Dan, you were saying that all children draw.
Yep. All kids. Well, let's be really, really clear. There is a quite small percent of the world's population of people who do not see. And I for various reasons. There's a whole number of reasons why someone might have a visual difference. Or there are, of course, some people who were born without vision, don't have it at all, or later in life. So I want to be really, really clear. Let's recognize that there are some differences, but given the fact that something like 97% of the world's population is pretty good at vision, I'm going to skew towards that part because that's the part that I fit into.
It's important.
And so when I was little, I drew all the time.
Wow.
And what I found, and most kids do, I have kids, I spend a lot of time around kids. You give kids a crayon or a pencil and a piece of paper, they're going to draw. And then a really terrible thing happens right around maybe age 9 or 10, when a child starts to become quite accomplished at reading, is the teachers take away the drawing materials.
Yeah.
And education becomes, your intelligence is measured by your ability to write and talk. And it's insane.
It's insane.
Because the very tool that got us to be able to read and write and make sense of the world is then taken away at the moment we most need it. And so I just never lost it. I just kept drawing.
Oh, wow. So you didn't have like a reconciliation where you came back to it.
I never stopped because
wow,
I never.
That's amazing.
And a lot of people discover later in life the power of their visual mind. A lot of people never lost it, but that's my story, Sunny.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't pick it up until I was 29 and I started working at the Grove. And so I definitely lost it, lost contact with it. And partly that was why it was so restorative when I rediscovered it. And also how comforting your work was in terms of the accessibility of it, because I didn't feel like I had to be skillful or artistic, and it was actually about thinking. It wasn't about being creative or aesthetically pleasing. So that's very cool. I'd love for y'all to put in the chat. Some of you have a little origin story related to visual language. If we have time to just scan them, that would be awesome. So also, you still have 1:11 for this panel, y'all, FYI. So also, Dan, so you've educated so many people. So what has surprised you as you have done that? Because I've done that too. And I'm always like, we have our own expectations and biases. So what surprised you as you've tried to educate adults or re-educate adults in visual language?
How easy it is. It is. Yeah. Well, let's be clear. There's two kinds of people in this world. There's people who you say you go into a business environment.
Muggles
and wizards. And not all the wizards are good. There are people whom, when you go into an organizational meeting or a business meeting or to go do a show or a conference and you say, we're going to draw. Some people say, yeah. And then other people say, we're going to what? I can't do that.
Yeah.
For that second group of people, if you just take 30 seconds and have everybody grab a pen and a paper and just draw a circle and a stick figure, everybody can do it. And so it's really actually very easy. That's surprise number one. It's surprisingly easy to rekindle your visual spirit. And then the second thing is when you do that, you come to realize that this notion of vision is a superpower that most of us have in common. It's an incredible superpower. We can leap tall buildings just by drawing a building and jumping over it. I mean, can we do it in real life? I don't know, but we can sure do it on paper.
But if we were going to try, it would sure help us to build a visual plan for it and then start to imagine that possibility, right? It increases the probability of success. We know that about it from athletes.
Totes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
from athletes and military people. So y'all are into the next panel. Yeah. So your next timer can start.
Okay, we're going to scoot on down here, and I'm just using Douglas's as the example, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to zoom in, if you would, Sunny, on anybody's third panel. Doesn't matter which one, the one that says how much, how many.
Okay, very cool.
Zoom in and get us to where we can see the red Post-its. Okay, so this one, I need you all who are playing to really do a significant shift in the way you are thinking about your story. Because now what I need you to do, same as we did with the Muggles and the Wizards, I need you to think of something you can quantify. Because as you're telling the story, guaranteed someone's going to say, yeah, that's fine, but how did you measure that?
Yeah, right.
How you going to measure that? So this is the part this is where we need to acknowledge that. So what I need you to do is draw a chart or two, pie chart, bar chart, thermometer thingy, whatever you want.
And over here, just
something that's going to illustrate how you might quantify or measure a change that takes place across your story. So I'm not going to say any more than that, but Jim, if you, the clock's already going.
It's okay. If they need, we can always add a minute if they need a little more time.
Okay. I'm also paying attention to the clock, and I realize we're 13 minutes from ending this too. So we're going to be fine, but we're going to werush. We're going to move. We're not going to rush. We never rush. As they say in flying, and you know, Sunny, you know me enough to know that I'm a pilot, and I always love using flight analogies or astronaut analogies for everything.
Yeah.
There's a saying.
Sports analogies.
There's a saying among pilots that if you want to go really fast, go slow. Go slow.
Is that where it came from?
Yeah, go slow to go fast. So we're just going to take a breath and just go real slow, and the time will play out as it needs.
Wait, how does that work ergonomically, going slow to go fast in planes?
It's conceptual. When buzzers start to go off and red lights start to flash and the whole world is starting to spin out, you just take it one thing at a time.
Okay.
And it works in real life too, because it's known as what's the next best move? What's the next right move? I can't solve everything. That would make my head explode. But what is the next good move to make? And do that.
That's a very Zen thing to say, because that is what we practice in the moment, being receptive to what's happening in the moment, staying calm, and then attending to that thing.
Yep.
But that takes practice. So awesome. So I have another question for you. Y'all have 30 seconds, but I think Jim could add, should we give him 30?
Nope. We're sticking to the rules. I hate to do it.
I know, but I think we ate into their time a little bit.
They're all doing good.
Okay, they're fine.
Look at everybody's got charts cooking.
Okay, right on. So let's go to the, I know, isn't it cool when you pull back? It's like they're doing so much great work. So then you want to go to this one in 9, 8, like that.
Yeah, let's do that. And then save your question for 5 seconds, because now we're moving into what is going to be.
Yeah.
It's lovely that this one comes near the end, because this fourth panel, this when panel, is pretty much the easiest one of them all.
Okay. Really?
We've identified our character set, our people and our things. We've drawn a map that shows their relationship at some point in time. We've drawn a chart that says something that's measurable. This is our chance to say, okay, so what's the order in which these things unfurl? So in this one, you just need to make a really simple timeline, real basic. This and then this and then this and then this. If you want to make it circular, because it's a repeating process, by all means, but you can read it. Draw a timeline illustrating 4 to 5 steps required to get that change to happen, or what takes place during your story.
Okay.
So while they're doing that, hit me with that question, Sunny.
Okay. Well, so this, and again, these are kind of selfish, because these are the things people ask me. And so I'm just like, oh, what would Dan say? But if you, I don't know, tell me if you like this question. What do you perceive as ongoing barriers to entry into becoming a visual explorer or visual thinking in business environments? And I have my own perceptions, but I want to hear yours. Why doesn't this become just like a native language that is still taught all over the place? You know what I mean?
Okay, well, can we blame the British?
I think we should.
All right, let's blame the Brits, because why
right?
not? Okay,
isn't Voldemort British?
All of Harry Potter's British. So, but that therein lies what makes things so fascinating. Some of the greatest visual storytellers that I admire and think are fantastic, whether it's J.K. Rowling or J.R.R. Tolkien or Roald Dahl or,
you like the imaginative ones.
Yeah. Or movie directors, Christopher Nolan.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of Brits. And here's the thing that's
Yeah.
cool about it. So we here in the United States, and this is also true of people who might be from India or from Pakistan or Canada, or anybody who was formerly a colony of the Brits, we all kind of inherited the British educational system with all the good and all the bad that has. And if we go into broad history, the British educational system historically was essentially configured right around the time of the Industrial Revolution to divide people up into two categories: those who are going to end up working in the factory in the field, and those who are going to end up being the leaders. And so the educational system that we've inherited essentially divides people into those who are very, very good verbal communicators and those who are not. Wow. And if you're a great verbal communicator, that is emphasized and amplified in the educational system, and that's what training is optimized for. And if you ain't so good at the words, you're going to go up into the factory, and you may be great there, but we've inherited that system. And so the barrier to entry, Sunny, to answer your question is this: we still live under the misguided notion that if you can't talk well, you are stupid.
Oh, it pisses me off.
Yep. And we are now finding ways to rectify that, that we recognize there are multiple intelligences, there are multiple ways to express yourself. And so the biggest barrier to entry is get over your education.
Yeah.
Whatever you've learned is fantastic. Add the visual piece to it. Don't undermine what you know, because that's good.
Yeah.
But add the visual piece to it.
Yeah. Some of the biggest fans of the Doodle Revolution are educators, because I guess I said what they wanted to say, which was a little bit of a middle finger to the establishment, because it's wrong to exclude all of these really intelligent other types of learners. And so that's another reason why I appreciate what you do. So we're on the last one, and they don't need a 3 minutes for the last, do you think?
But let's do a 2-minute timer, Jim, for this last one. And let's walk through it really quick. Here's what we need you to do. All of our game players, I see some of you are already doing it. You drew 4 beautiful pictures for us. What I want you to do is write or draw, or both, either one, whatever's the most convenient for you. What is the most important lesson that you want us to know from the story that you've just told? You went through all of this work. And by the way, I'm just going to amp it up for 1 second. What you did in creating your visual decoder in 15 minutes is exactly what your visual mind did in a tenth of a second. And so I want you to bring us to the conclusion of it now. Why did you go through that process? What's the takeaway? And so as folks work on that for 2 minutes, Sunny, I want to be clear. I'm not trying to diss the Brits. It's a funny joke, but the British educational system's fabulous, but there is a downside too.
Yeah, there's a legacy that we inherited that has heirlooms and problems. Yeah.
So here on that note, both J.K. Rowling and J.R.R. Tolkien and Roald Dahl, all of them drew all the time. And yet when they went to publishers, the publishers would say, no. People are not interested in your drawings. People want to know the words. So pull the drawings out. And it's only later, after they became famous, that their drawings were allowed back into the work. And it's remarkable.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. What I love is that story, Dan, is really, you told that using the visual decoder as we were talking about it, right? You just talked about that this theory was underlying it, but you gave these images of what the difference was, the people and who are in the story. You know, the British divided them into verbal communicators, and people should go in the factories. And the underlying theme was, if you can't talk well, you're stupid. But the conclusion really is to add visuals to it, because it levels the playing field, and it always makes you brilliant.
Yeah.
Patty, yes.
And I'm glad, Patty, you came in, because Patty right now is doing analog info doodling or performance graphic recording, whatever you want to call it. But partly her capacity for summation is because she is intently listening and visualizing what we're doing in process. So it is potent. And they have 12 seconds left for this panel. And I miss Danielle. I love that there's players in here that I'm like, hi, welcome. How did you get in?
Hey, Sunny, just pan out. Look at what people have done.
Isn't it cool? Look.
Yeah. Okay. With 4 minutes to go.
Yeah.
We just are running a little tiny bit long. We're going to have time for 2 of our panelists to walk us through
Okay.
Who do you want to pick, Sunny? You get a pick. Who do you want to pick?
Well, I feel like they should raise their hands because it's Douglas, Saher, or Antonio. And which ones of y'all deeply want to go? Put like a little thumbs up or something on put a check next to your box if you want to go and talk to Dan.
Saher's doing it. Let's go with.
Okay, Douglas said yes. Okay, Douglas.
Okay, let's do Douglas and Saher right away. And Antonio will get you next time. We just ran out of the clock, ran out. Too much talking, too much.
Yeah,
fun.
sorry, I talk a lot. Go ahead.
So Douglas, the trick here is just walk us through sort of panning around mural, give us the title, and then take 30 seconds or so to summarize what we're looking at in each panel and walk us through your story. Cool?
Yeah, can y'all unmute Douglas, please?
Sorry, that was me. Yeah, this is interesting because I picked a story that's kind of unfolding right now for me. I'm spending 80% of my time working on hiring a VP of sales. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about this and obsessing over it. And it's been, I would say the big epiphany was, well, I'll save that for the end. So first, just thinking about all the people, my advisors, my coach, the designers that are helping launch like job ads and update our career page, candidates are involved, our head of L&D, our head of ops, people in my social. And then when I looked at the where, I started mapping out the relationships of who was meeting the candidates during interviews, who was kind of involved in dialogue, and realizing it's that I'm at the center of a lot of that, and that's why it's eating up a lot of my time, and that was my time there. So maybe I'll just say quickly, this is really fascinating from a lot of this stuff intuitively came as I was just noticing things and putting in fixes, but visualizing it was interesting to reflect on some of the kind of causal stuff that I hadn't really necessarily identified, much less versus just saying, hey, we need to do this.
And what's the big lesson you learned there, Douglas? Take us to panel 5. What do you got there? What's written?
Yeah, the way I would summarize it, and I definitely would not have said this before going through this exercise, so it's interesting, is that the better filtering we have will result in less work and more relevant candidates, which is an obvious statement for anyone that does recruiting, but it wasn't where my head was at in this process. But it's basically what we've been doing is adding more and more filtering.
Beautiful.
Nice. That's an awesome insight, Douglas. I know this is a thorny problem. Saher.
You got 1 minute, Saher. Can we do it?
I know. And then in the meantime, I'll just hold up your book.
Yes, we can do it. I have unmuted myself. I hope everybody can hear me.
Gotcha.
All right. Sunny, can you just zoom in on my game space so I can actually be explaining the thing in a minute and everybody can understand?
I think I'm there.
All right. So my story is called What's the Difference Between Edison, Einstein, and Your Kid? The story starts with a school principal, my 2 kids, Jibrail the Dreamer and Misal the Curious, and myself. So one day I was called to the school and it was a parents-teacher meet. So I go to my son's class and they tell me that he's over imaginative. He's always in his own thoughts. And he is drawing stuff like black forests and monsters in it. And we don't know what's wrong. Maybe you need help. You should be seeing somebody and finding out what's going on in his head. 2 minutes down the line, I go to my daughter's class and my daughter's teacher tells me that she's too realistic. She's too curious. She wants to know everything about the world. She's very scientific. I think you should work on her creativity and make her a little imaginative. So I had 2 completely different kids and a principal who was complaining about both. So what I did was that I said, okay, so I have to work with 2 very different children and make them fall in love with studies in their own way. So where this story took place is actually on my drive back from that particular meeting. When I was driving back, I was thinking to myself as to what I can be doing. And I was passing by a park and I saw a tree and I said, how can photosynthesis lead me to connect everything to what they're doing? So my son was into sports, he was into football, and I said, well, yes, photosynthesis is a scientific biological process. There's biology, there's light and gases and water working together to nurture the plant. And then, but it's not just biology, it's also chemistry because it's chemicals, and then it's also math because you have to balance those equations, and light of course plays a role, so it's also physics. But then how much light becomes geography. And then from geography, there have been, spice wars and stuff, and people can be, talking about the history of the trade wars or the spice wars. And there's, whether it's history or literature, it's, you'd be reading Wordsworth, you'd be seeing artists. So
Sahar, I'm so apologetic. Sahar, it's beautiful. Can you take us to your closing lesson? What was it going through the whole story? Just because we want to know more, but we have to roll off.
All right, perfect. So the solution I came up with was a mom's community where every mom helped the child grow. We now are 8,000 moms strong. We have 400 homework queries posted every month. We have 1,500 solutions coming up. We have live sessions with thought leaders. We are working towards visual note-taking. We're working towards chess. We're working towards how to think like and paint like Leonardo da Vinci. So we're doing a lot of that stuff together as mothers. So coming back to the title, what's the difference between Edison, Einstein, and your kid? The answer is maybe it's just you, whether you're the teacher or the mom.
Sahar, that is beautiful.
Bravo. Yes, she's very inspiring. She's kind of a revolutionary in Karachi, I have to say. So
Thank
Dan,
you.
I know we need to thank you, Sahar. Sorry to interrupt you.
And let's give a shout out to Antonio, who we didn't have time to go through it, but here's the beauty of it. We can look at all these things and make sense of these stories too. All right, Sunny, I want to thank you so much. This was delightful to be able to share everything, and whatever you want to do to close us out, I'm happy to play along.
Thank you so much, Dan. I can't say enough about it. And I hope you fly here one day and visit me in the mountains. But you guys, if you want to learn more, Napkin Academy, it's like full of tips and tricks and a lot of Dan's methodologies. This is his latest book. And Jim, we have a show coming up next week, July 6th, with a candidate, with a guest of Jim. So I just want to give her a shout out. But Dan, like mad love, you're getting a ton of love in the chat. Not surprising. Super appreciate you. Jim, you want to tell us about Sarah?
Yeah, so Sarah
Thank
Nelson.
y'all players. Thank you, players.
Sarah Nelson, we've known her for a long time. She used to be at IBM. Of course, Muriel and IBM have a close relationship. She's now at Kyndryl, but has done a ton of work around teamwork and bonding and relational intelligence and how you can coach teams to be better, healthier teams. And we're going to talk about some of those topics on July 6th.
Yay. So y'all come back. We're still experimenting, but I think there's some value and some joy here. So it's worthwhile, but I have many blessings, many happy returns. Dan, you are the man with the master plan. I told you.
Thank you all, Sunny.
Right on,
Thank you, everybody at Mural. I love this.
Thanks,
yeah,
Dan.
me too. Yes. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks.
Wonderful
Bye.
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 Bye, Douglas.
Bye-bye.
Bye.